September 8, 1944. Late afternoon in Chiswick, a quiet suburb west of London. The air is warm, still carrying the faint sweetness of late summer gardens. Children kick a ball down Staveley Road, a woman pegs out washing, an old man walks his dog. The war feels distant here, distant enough that people have begun to believe the worst is over. Normandy was months ago. Paris fell to the Allies only 2 weeks earlier. The nightly drone of the Luftwaffe has been replaced by the occasional buzz of a V-1 flying bomb, and even those have grown rarer. Then, at 6:43 p.m., the ground lifts. There is no whistle, no rising scream of engines, nothing to announce what is coming. Only a sudden, violent detonation, as though the sky itself has split open. A house on Staveley Road simply ceases to exist. Bricks, timber, glass, and 3 human lives are flung outward in a roaring hemisphere of flame and dust. Seconds later, another explosion tears through Maisons-Laffitte, a suburb of Paris. 2 rockets, launched within minutes of each other from a wooded site near The Hague, have crossed the Channel in northern France faster than sound itself. They have arrived without warning, without defense, without mercy. This is the debut of the Vergeltungswaffe 2, the V2, the world's first long-range ballistic missile. A machine that rises beyond the atmosphere, falls back at 5 times the speed of sound, and carries a 1-ton warhead capable, in the darkest imaginings of its creators, of leveling entire districts of a city. For the people of London and, later, Antwerp, the V2 will become known simply as the rocket. It will kill more than 5,000 civilians, injure tens of thousands more, and sow a new kind of dread, one that arrives in absolute silence. Let us go back to the beginning. The story starts not in the smoke and rubble of London, but on the windswept Baltic coast, on a narrow spit of land called Piemont. It is the early 1930s, and a young aristocrat named Wernher von Braun, brilliant, ambitious, and already dreaming of space, has joined a small band of engineers who believe liquid-fueled rockets can reach heights no aircraft ever could. They are enthusiasts at first, firing small prototypes in abandoned fields outside Berlin. Their early rockets, A1, A2, A3, are modest things, barely reaching a few kilometers altitude. But von Braun has vision. He speaks of intercontinental travel, of journeys to the moon. And in 1937, the German army takes notice. The army wants a weapon. Von Braun wants funding. A marriage of convenience is born. By 1939, Piemont has become a vast, secret complex, long assembly halls, wind tunnels, test stands ringed by pine forests and dunes. Here, under von Braun's technical direction, the aggregate 4 rocket begins to take shape. 4 to 6 feet long, 14 tons at launch, powered by a turbulent mix of ethyl alcohol and liquid oxygen. Its engine, designed by Walter Till, produces 25 tons of thrust, enough to hurl the missile 200 miles downrange. Guidance is primitive but ingenious. Gyroscopes keep it stable, graphite vanes in the exhaust steer it, and an analog computer cuts the engine at the precise moment to send the warhead arcing toward its target. The mathematics is exquisite. The rocket climbs almost vertically for the first minute, reaching speeds that carry it above 80 kilometers, higher than any balloon, higher than any aircraft has yet flown. At burnout, it is already beyond the atmosphere. For the next 4 or 5 minutes it coasts in silence through the vacuum of space, following a perfect parabolic path dictated by gravity alone. Then it begins to fall. Re-entering the atmosphere nose first, it accelerates to nearly a mile a second. By the time fragile human ears could possibly hear it, the warhead has already detonated. The first successful A4 launch comes on October 3, 1942. The rocket rises cleanly from Test Stand 7, arcs over the Baltic, and lands 120 miles away, almost exactly where the engineers predicted. Von Braun, watching from the control bunker, is exultant. "It worked," he shouts. "It really worked." General Walter Dornberger, the military commander of Piemont, embraces him. Albert Speer, the Reichsarmaments minister, is informed that night. Hitler, initially skeptical, begins to dream of vengeance. For the Führer has been frustrated. The Luftwaffe Blitz on Britain failed in 1940-41. The RAF still flies. The Red Army still advances. Conventional bombing cannot reach deep into England without risking irreplaceable aircraft and crews. But this new rocket needs no pilot. It cannot be intercepted. It cannot be shot down. Hitler orders mass production. The weapon is redesignated Vergeltungswaffe 2, Vengeance Weapon 2. The V-1 flying bomb, already in development, becomes V-1. The propaganda machine prepares to trumpet a miracle. But miracles require factories and labor. In the summer of 1943, the RAF discovers Peenemünde. On the night of August 17th to 18th, Operation Hydra sends nearly 600 bombers over the Baltic. Moonlit, undefended, the site is devastated. Test stands collapse. Walter Till and Chief Engineer Wernher are killed. Hundreds of scientists and workers die. Production of the A4 stalls. Spee convinces Hitler to move manufacturing underground. In the Harz Mountains of central Germany, near the sleepy town of Nordhausen, prisoners from the concentration camp Buchenwald are marched into a hillside to excavate two vast parallel tunnels. The factory is called Mittelwerk, Central Works. The camp that supplies its labor is called Dora. What happens inside Dora-Mittelwerk is one of the darkest chapters of the war. Prisoners, French, Russian, Polish, Dutch, political detainees, Jews, work 12-hour shifts in choking gypsum dust, assembling rockets they will never see fly. Beatings are routine. Hangings are public. Malnutrition and disease are rampant. By the time the tunnels are fully operational, more than 20,000 prisoners will have died, far more than the V-2 ever kills in combat. Yet the rockets emerge. By early 1944, production reaches hundreds per month. Mobile launch units, simple trailers called Mählerwagen, are designed so batteries can fire from forests, fields, or suburban streets in occupied Holland and France. No fixed site, no warning. The first operational launches come, as we have seen, on September 8, 1944. In London, the government at first refuses to acknowledge the new weapon. When questions are asked in Parliament, Churchill's ministers speak vaguely of explosions of unknown origin. Civilians begin to notice a pattern. Huge blasts, often two in quick succession, with no air raid warning and no aircraft overhead. Rumors spread. Some call them flying gas mains. Others know better. A survivor of the very first strike, Mrs. E.M. Hollingsworth, later recalled, "There was a terrific blue flash and a roar. The whole house lifted and seemed to turn around. I found myself lying in the road covered in debris. My husband was buried under the stays. We dug him out. He was alive, thank God, but the house was gone. Just gone. No siren. No drone. Only the explosion, and then the silence afterward. That silence becomes the V-2's signature. The V-1 had announced itself with its rattling pulse jet engine. When the engine cut, you had perhaps 10 seconds to throw yourself flat before impact. The V-2 gave nothing. It arrived with the warhead. By October, the rockets are falling daily. Battersea, Deptford, Ilford, Norwood. A direct hit on a crowded Woolworths in New Cross on November 25 kills 168 people and seriously injures 123 more, one of the single worst incidents of the war on British soil. In Antwerp, after the Allies capture the city, the rockets switch target. Between October 1944 and March 1945, more V-2s fall on Antwerp than on London. One strike on the Rex cinema kills 567 people, soldiers and civilians, in a single flash. Yet the V-2 never lives up to the apocalyptic promise of its propaganda. Its 1-ton Amatol warhead is devastating locally, but it cannot level a city. Accuracy is poor, circular error probable around 5 kilometers at maximum range. Many rockets fail, guidance malfunctions, engines explode on the pad, airframes break up during ascent. Of roughly 3,200 launched against England, only about 1,300 reach the Greater London area, and perhaps half actually detonate as intended. Militarily, the V-2 is a failure. It consumes vast resources, liquid oxygen, alcohol, precision components, for negligible strategic effect. The manpower and materials poured into Mittelwerk could have built thousands of fighter aircraft or tanks. Spee himself later admitted the program was a misallocation of effort. But as a weapon of terror, it is chillingly effective. Londoners live with a new anxiety. The old rituals of the Blitz, shelters, wardens, the communal defiance, mean nothing against a missile that cannot be heard. People begin to flinch at sudden loud noises. Children are sent away again. Morale, which had held firm through the V1 campaign, begins to crack. A mass observation report from late 1944 records one woman saying, "With the buzz bombs you knew where you were. With these things you don't know anything until it's too late." In the launch areas of Holland, German crews work in freezing woods. A battery typically consists of 30 to 40 vehicles, fuel tankers, control vans, the erecting Mählerwagen, fire control trucks. Preparation takes hours. Fueling with volatile liquid oxygen is especially dangerous. Once fired, the rocket is gone in seconds. Then the crews pack up and move before Allied fighter bombers can find them. It is tense, technical work, carried out by men who know the war is turning against them. On March 27, 1945, the last V2 to strike Britain falls on Orpington, Kent, killing one person, Mrs. Ivy Millerchamp, aged 34. By then, Allied armies have overrun most launch sites in Holland. The rocket campaign is over almost as suddenly as it began. When American troops reach Nordhausen in April 1945, they find the tunnels of Mittelwerk stacked with finished rockets and the emaciated survivors of Dora. General Eisenhower visits and is visibly shaken. The human cost is laid bare. Wernher von Braun and key members of his team surrender to the Americans in Bavaria. They bring with them plans, documents, and ambition intact. Operation Paperclip quietly transports von Braun and hundreds of his colleagues to the United States. Within 15 years, the man who built the V2 is directing the Saturn V that carries Americans to the moon. The V2 itself becomes a direct ancestor of every ballistic missile that follows, the Soviet Scud, the American Redstone, the intercontinental missiles that will dominate the Cold War. A weapon conceived in vengeance gives birth to the technology that reaches the stars, and that still holds the power to destroy cities many times over. In the end, the V2 did not change the war. It arrived too late, in too small numbers, with too little accuracy. But it changed everything that came after. It proved that a rocket could cross continents, could arc above the atmosphere, could deliver destruction without warning or defense. It drew the blueprint for the age of nuclear missiles. And for the people who lived beneath its silent fall, Londoners hurrying home through autumn streets, Belgian families crowding into cinemas, prisoners toiling in the darkness of Mittelwerk, the V2 remains a reminder of how thin the line can be between human ingenuity and human catastrophe. The rocket that could destroy cities never quite did. But it showed, unmistakably, that one day such a rocket would. As we look back at these moments of history, I want you to know that you're not just viewers, you're family. Every story I bring to you, every piece of history we explore together, is for you. If you enjoyed this journey, please hit that like button, subscribe to join our family, and leave a comment to share your thoughts. Your support gives me the motivation to keep digging, keep researching, and create even more content that's just for you. Together, we keep history alive.